3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a Thursday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course, streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. JP Shadrick's going to stop by hour 20 from now, reporter for the Jacksonville Jaguars radio network. He will join us to preview the Jaguar season, as you do have a football game that's coming your way tonight, the Hall of Fame game, as you do have the Chicago Bears and the Texans. Does anyone really care about that? Nope, I don't. But you do have football back, which is nice to see. However, I got to start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Russell Wilson is now back with the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you were not aware, he missed the first 4 training camp practices with a calf injury. Now, you may ask, how did he sustain the calf injury? And sometimes you get bizarre explanations. I'm not going to say this is a bizarre explanation, but what he was doing was really pointless. I don't know if this was in a drill the team was making him do, or if this was in his own personal training, but he was pushing a sled while training, and that's how he suffered this calf injury. That's how he tweaked the calf. Now, I am not necessarily an expert in football training just because I participated in football training back when I was in high school. But a lineman pushing a sled, which I was, I can understand. Now, I know there's like big sleds and mini sleds and things like that now. And, was he pushing some sort of sled that had weights on it? That could be a possibility. It may not be the traditional sled the way that I'm thinking of it. But why the heck is a quarterback pushing a sled? And that just goes into the image of Russell Wilson, right? Like, Russell Wilson tries to tell you he's basically the ultimate tryhard. So I don't know if this was a team drill, if this was an individual drill for Russell Wilson, but somehow he suffered this calf injury while pushing the sled. I'm just surprised he wasn't on a plane where he suffered the calf injury from all the stretching that he supposedly does whenever he's on a flight, if you go back to that international story a few years ago. So, in his absence, Justin Fields was QB1. And right now you have a competition between Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, where most of us believe that Russell Wilson is going to win that job and he'll be the week 1 starter for the Pittsburgh Steelers as they march into Atlanta and go up against the Atlanta Falcons on September 8th, as you have the Arthur Smith revenge game, with Arthur Smith now being the offensive coordinator for the Steelers, going up against his old team in the Atlanta Falcons, where Arthur Smith, quite frankly, should have been locked up last season and charged with football crimes for not really using Bijan Robinson as much as he should early on in the season and trying to make Desmond Ridder a franchise quarterback. But anyway, I digress. Now let's get to Adam Schefter, with Russell Wilson being back in the fold, Russell Wilson returning from this calf injury while pushing a sled. This was Adam Schefter, the preeminent NFL insider, on the ESPN yesterday on the Fields versus Russ QB battle.
You heard the Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin come out before camp and say, in his words, that Russell Wilson had the quote-unquote pole position to win the Steelers starting quarterback job. But what happens when you have the pole position and you suffer a calf strain early in camp and you give your competition some reps? That enables Justin Fields to make a mark with the coaching staff, and he certainly did. And I think Russell Wilson remains in the pole position, but I also think that Justin Fields has opened some eyes, and they see the type of offense they could have. And we know how this staff has felt about Justin Fields in the past, and he has gotten better at practice every day, as it's been told to me. Again, I think Russell's in the lead, but I think Justin Fields has gained some ground just by being out there, with Russell being sidelined due to that calf injury.
Now, if that was just some random, let's say, Steelers reporter or some random Steelers content creator, I would just say this is someone that has nothing to talk about, and they're trying to make content out of basically nothing. However, this is Adam freaking Schefter. I don't think he just says things to say things to fill time on a TV show. So the way Schefter basically said it was, yes, Mike Tomlin said the man that was in the lead position was Russell Wilson. But in Russell Wilson's absence, Justin Fields made up a lot of ground. So maybe this is more of an authentic competition than I was led to believe. Because if you recall, through my reporting, the day when Russell Wilson signed with the Steelers and Kenny Pickett was still there, I was told from a source that I trust a lot, and a source that knows the situation very well, that they may not even say it's a quarterback competition between Russell Wilson and Kenny Pickett, and everyone knew Russell Wilson was going to be the starter. But then, as we know, Kenny Pickett gets traded to the Eagles, and then boom, they pull off this deal for Justin Fields. And even though Kenny Pickett was a first-round pick, it was very clear last year at different times in the season, whenever you wanted to be honest with yourself, that you knew Kenny Pickett wasn't a franchise guy. And when Kenny Pickett now gets traded to Philadelphia, it kind of shows you that the rest of the league thinks he's a backup quarterback, because a lot of teams need quarterbacks, and no one tried to bring Kenny Pickett in as a starter. Because there's a lot of times, right, where you have a young quarterback that fails in one spot, and another team says, we'll trade for him, and we'll go make him a starting quarterback somewhere else, because there's ego, there's arrogance, and it's, oh, that team couldn't get him right, but we could get him right with our staff. But with Justin Fields, you're seeing that play out too, where, yes, no other team necessarily was going to trade for him to be their day one starter, or it doesn't appear that. Now, he could be the day one starter in Pittsburgh. I still don't believe that to be the case, but there's still a curiosity factor with Justin Fields, because we know how dynamic he is on the ground, and he's up and down as a passer. And also, Chicago's synonymous, up until this new era with Caleb Williams, or this thought to be new era with Caleb Williams, of just quarterbacks not working out there. They never had a 4,000-yard passer, for crying out loud. Like Jay Cutler, right, is a god in Chicago, if you could believe that. You know, most other organizations, people are like, Jay Cutler, nice player. In Chicago, it's like, oh, that's our guy. But you look at Justin Fields, I still think there's a curiosity factor on what he can be if in a proper situation. And say what you want about the Steelers, because they're not a great team anymore. They're a great organization, but they're not a great team anymore. They haven't been feared in a while. We know what the standard is in Pittsburgh. It's Super Bowl or bust. That's what it should be. But it hasn't been that in a long time. And I know it's not a long time if you were like a Lions fan or if you were a Jets fan. I'm talking about for the Steelers fan. They haven't won a damn playoff game since the 2016 season. That's not the Steelers standard. But when things go bad for the Steelers, they're a fringe playoff team. Look, the Steelers had no quarterback last year. They still made a wild card round. And they were competitive in that wild card game up against the Buffalo Bills. So even when bleep hits the fan for the Steelers, they're still like a 9-8, 10-7 football team. So there's that thought, oh, Justin Fields is now there. You have George Pickens, you got Najee Harris, you got Jalen Warren, a revamped offensive line, and a stellar defense. You know, maybe if Justin Fields actually sees the field, he could be one of those guys that didn't make his career be what it should have been early on, and then you have it humming the rest of your career. But is he going to ever get that opportunity is the question. And I'm going to sit here today and say this. The better quarterback to win the first game of the season for the Steelers is Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is no longer going to be viewed as a great quarterback. We are far from those days. No one's looking at him as a top 10 quarterback, but he was fine last year with the Denver Broncos. However, I know what Russell Wilson is. And at best, the Steelers win one playoff game if everything goes right with Russell Wilson. I still don't know what the ceiling is for Justin Fields. There is still a curiosity factor that I have with Justin Fields because of how poorly it went in Chicago, and some of it's his fault, but you feel like the majority of it and the majority of the blame goes on the Chicago Bears with how they handle quarterbacks. So quite frankly, even though I think Russell Wilson right now is the better player and probably will win the job, I don't want to see him win the job. Selfishly, I want to see Justin Fields win the job. Because even if he doesn't have success with the Pittsburgh Steelers, I still think the upside with Justin Fields at quarterback for the Steelers is greater than what Russell Wilson could offer you. Because I don't know what the upside is with Justin Fields. I don't know how to evaluate Justin Fields. I don't know what the ceiling is for Justin Fields. For Russ, I know what it is. Solid quarterback, good quarterback. At most, you're getting to the divisional round if everything goes right and you're winning one playoff game. At most. But that's kind of been what the Steelers have been for the last 8 years or so. They make the playoffs and then they go home wild card weekend. So if you just get to the divisional round, which that's at the extreme, that's at the best, does that really do much for me? No, it doesn't. And I'll take it a step further. Not only do I want to see Justin Fields be the starting quarterback in Pittsburgh, I kind of feel the same way in Atlanta. Where I look at, and it's funny that those two teams play each other week one. I look at Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins is a very good quarterback. I'd rather have entering this season Kirk Cousins over Russell Wilson. Don't get what I'm saying twisted. But with that being said, I know that there's an expiration date in Atlanta for Kirk Cousins. So even though the Falcons with Kirk Cousins will win the division this year, will be a playoff team, it really doesn't do anything for me. Because they've already told you, we're going to get rid of Kirk Cousins before that deal expires when they drafted Michael Penix Jr. in the top 10 at 8 overall. So it's kind of funny with how those two moves played out, where Russ lands on a very cheap deal in Pittsburgh, and Kirk Cousins lands on a very lucrative 4-year deal in Atlanta, and we haven't even reached game one of the season yet. And quite frankly, I feel like it's pointless right now for Russell Wilson to be in Pittsburgh, and I feel like it's pointless for Kirk Cousins to be in Atlanta, because where are you going to? And if it's just for a 1-year investment, fine. But the guy that is waiting in both organizations, like Justin Fields, I don't know what his ceiling is. Michael Penix Jr., he's older. I think he's ready to play right now. And I'll be fascinated to see if either of those teams struggle, do they pull either of their quarterbacks? Because I still do believe that the Steelers are going to start Russell Wilson come week one. But the Steelers, I'll say this on the offensive side of the ball, ever since Big Ben and Pouncey left that organization, they have lacked a toughness on the offensive side of the ball. And maybe that toughness is now starting to slowly come back, because they've been tough on the defensive side of the ball. And unfortunately, it seems like whenever the offense is going well in Pittsburgh, the defense stinks. And whenever the defense is going really well, which that's been their identity as of late, the offense stinks. So if they could ever get someone on the same page, heck, maybe they could go have a special season. But I usually don't go crazy in training camp fights. But I like that the Steelers' offensive linemen were getting into a training camp fight yesterday with the defense. Here's Nate Herbig of the Steelers on the offensive line's practice fight after Justin Fields was hit during a drill.
Offensive line run, nobody's going to hit our quarterback cheap shot and get away with it. It's a big emphasis for us, a big emphasis for our unit. It's nothing personal. We just protect our quarterback. We appreciate what he does for us, so we're going to protect him. That's our job.
That's a tough clip. You want to know why it's a tough clip? You got an offensive lineman talking, and not only an offensive lineman talking, what is that, a lawnmower going off in the background? That's football guy stuff. That's tough guy stuff right there with the Steelers. Maybe the Steelers actually have a little toughness brought back to their offense. And you got a backup offensive lineman talking with a lawnmower going off in the background. But I like it. And notice, they said our quarterback when talking to Fields. Now, I think you could have had whoever standing there. Kyle Allen, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. I get that mentality, but it's nice to see that mentality's there. But some people will read into that, our quarterback, is that them saying? Is that a lineman saying they view Justin Fields as the quarterback of the team? So all I'm going to ask is simply this. Not who will be the starting quarterback, because I still think it will be Russell Wilson. But who do you want to see start for the Steelers in week one? Is it Russell Wilson or is it Justin Fields? And the early returns on this poll, 56.9% say Justin Fields. 43.1% say Russell Wilson. What say you? 855-212-4227. 855-212-4227. When we come on back, I have a question on the Bears and the Texans. And also, I have a question for Stu Kovacs. because Stuart Kovacs went to a place that I love in Philadelphia. And I told him, because Stu told me he was getting a cheesesteak. I said, wherever you go, and I gave him some recommendations, please post the picture of that cheesesteak on social media and the places that Stu went to. We talked about Arthur Smith maybe being locked up and tried for football crimes. Stuart Kovacs, depending on what he says on the other side of the break, may need to be locked up and thrown into cheesesteak jail because it was really bad. Like, I mean really bad where Stu elected to go. So I need to interrogate maybe like Jack Bauer style Stuart Kovacs when we come on back. You better start giving me the answers that I want to hear, Stu, or you'll be losing a finger. Coming on back, it is the Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Breaking news on the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, not great news for the Chargers. According to Ian Rappaport, the Chargers announced that quarterback Justin Herbert was diagnosed with an injury to the plantar fascia in his right foot. He'll be in a boot for 2 weeks, then gradually work his way back. The team says it's with the expectation that he will be ready for the start of the season. So not news that's like, oh my goodness gracious, the Charger season's over. But he's going to be in a boot for 2 weeks and then gradually work his way back. Now, it is the first day of August. So if he's in a boot for 2 weeks from today, that is August 15th when he gets out of that boot. And the season for the Los Angeles Chargers, they have a preseason game on August 10th, August 17th, August 24th. So he's not going to play the first 2 preseason games. He may not have played the preseason games anyway, because that's just how it is now in the NFL. But week 1 for the Chargers is Stu's Raiders. And week 2 for the Chargers are the Carolina Panthers. So I would not rush Herbert back just for the sake of getting Herbert back. And sorry, Stu, but you look at the schedule, and I'm not even saying that the Chargers are definitely better than the Raiders, but it's like
all not those, the Chiefs.
Yeah, out in the AFC West, exactly. Right now, Chargers, Broncos, Raiders. All right, I think the Broncos are the worst team in that division. I probably put the Chargers as the second, and then the Raiders as the third. If the Raiders and the Chargers flip, would it shock me? No. But it's like the Raiders are going to be starting a backup quarterback anyway, if it's O'Connell or Gardner Minshew. So if you're starting Max Duggan or Easton Stick, does it really matter? I don't think so. Now, you'd rather have Herbert on the field, but I'm not putting Herbert on the field if it means that I rush him back too soon and then he suffers an injury that's a bigger deal and then he's out for like 6, 7, 8 weeks. You know, they'll probably rush him back because, it's week 1 and we have to have our quarterback on the field week 1 for a new era. But kind of, and I know Chargers fans may not want to hear this, and I don't know how you feel about this, Stu. I kind of feel like this is a punt year for the Chargers. And I know they have Harbaugh. I know they have Herbert, and Herbert's got his money. But if the Chargers miss the playoffs, are we all sitting here freaking out? Now, they can't be a 4-win team. They can't be a 5-win team. But I don't have any great expectations for the Los Angeles Chargers this year, Stu. I don't expect anything out of them.
I don't. I do think the fact that I think the Raiders and Broncos are both worse than them. And I think the Broncos are significantly worse. So I think there's a world where they could win all 4 of those division games. And I don't think they're a playoff team. I think there's just too many good teams in the AFC.
Yeah, but they're not going to win all 4 division games against the Broncos. And that's just a division. Like the Chiefs last year lost to the Raiders.
You're right.
Division games are still division games. There's always an upset.
And the Raiders also put 50 points on the Chargers in one game last year.
Yeah, that is true.
I mean, it's a different regime, different coach.
Then Staley got fired, right? That was the last game for
That was
Staley.
the last straw.
That knucklehead.
You're probably right, but I do think they're better than... I think they're like a 7 to 8 win team, probably.
Yeah. Like if they go 9-8, 10-7 and make the playoffs, are you stunned? No. Do I expect that to happen? I do not.
Right.
But with the way that, and I know you can't play this way with Herbert, but this is what you know about a Jim Harbaugh team. they're going to have a good offensive line, and they're going to be able to run the ball. So if Herbert's not 100% healthy, can you split the first 2 games of the season without Herbert and make sure he's fully healthy after that if he needs the extra time when you're going up against the Raiders and the Panthers? Yeah, I think you can. Now, if Herbert is healthy, you could win both those games, and you should win both those games. But if you don't have him, I think you could wait to put Herbert out on the field in, like, let's say, week 3 when you're in Pittsburgh, and you'd be okay with having 1 loss there, knowing that your quarterback wasn't able to go. So I'll just be fascinated to see how they handle this. Now, let me get to you, since we already opened up your mic here, so it just flows better than going to, this Hall of Fame game that, quite frankly, nobody, and I mean nobody, actually cares about. The only way you care about this is if you're gambling on it. If you're gambling on preseason football, man, I would love to examine your brain. Please donate your brain when it's all said and done, because I would love to examine it. So you told me you were going to Philadelphia yesterday.
That's right.
You went to the Yankees-Phillies game at 12:35 at Citizens Bank Park?
Yes, which I got to at about closer to 2 o'clock because the traffic was
wait.
absolutely horrendous.
You didn't get there to 2 o'clock?
It was like the
What
bottom
inning?
of the 3rd inning.
Oh, you're lucky.
I know.
Because with the pitch clock now, you may have missed the entirety of the game.
I was worried about that.
When did you leave New York City?
I left Bayonne.
Or Jersey, sorry.
Which is 90 minutes without traffic. I left at 10 o'clock.
Okay,
So
10 o'clock to, at worst, 3 hours?
It took me 50 minutes to go 4 miles.
Accident?
I don't know.
Was
I'm
it the
not sure.
soccer traffic, though? Because you went to the soccer game at night.
The soccer game wasn't at 7:30 though. I don't think there were I think there were a few people that had the same idea as me to go to both, but it wasn't a crazy amount.
So you left your apartment at 10.
Yes.
It took you 4 hours? You didn't get there till 2, you said, or 1:30?
It was like 1:30 something.
When did you get inside the stadium?
Closer to 2. It was 1:45. It was bad.
So basically it took you 4 hours to get there?
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Wow.
Yeah, it was insane.
Last Friday, or 2 Fridays ago, it was 2 Fridays ago, maybe it was a Thursday, I drove right in rush hour traffic to the Poconos. I got there in less than 3 hours.
Yeah.
You were in Philadelphia?
I know.
That's crazy.
Walt Whitman Bridge. I was on that thing for forever. It seemed like.
So you were already annoyed
Yeah,
with the traffic.
That was the first part of my annoyance, yes.
So strike one, it took you 4 hours to get to Philadelphia
Yes.
from North Jersey.
Yes.
So you paid for the tickets, right, to the Yankee-Phillies game.
Yes.
Which, bad job out of you. We could have got you tickets for that. We have a company here that has Yankee tickets and Phillies tickets. We could have got you tickets, but whatever. So it took you 4 hours to get to freaking Philadelphia. You missed 3 innings of the Phillies-Yankees game that you were going to. So game ends around what time?
Game ends around, it was close to 4. It was probably 3:40-ish, I would say.
So game ends around 3:45, let's just say.
Yes.
Or before 4 o'clock. Now, you told me you wanted to get a cheesesteak.
I did.
And all the stadiums in Philadelphia, Wells Fargo, where the Sixers and Flyers play, which they're changing their name, the Eagles, Lincoln Financial Field, and then the Phillies, Citizens Bank Park, they're all in the same area. They're all across the street from one another.
Yes.
So you were going back to the Link, correct? Lincoln Financial Field.
For the soccer game at 7:30.
And the soccer game was between Liverpool and who?
Arsenal.
And Arsenal.
Yes.
So did you drive, or did you you wanted to get a cheesesteak? Before we said where you went, did you drive? Did you take a subway? Did you Uber? What did you do? Because you already paid for parking.
Yeah, exactly.
For the baseball game.
I was not moving my car. That was the first thing.
How much was parking?
$30.
Oh, okay.
For the whole day. Perfect.
Not terrible.
Yeah. So this is part of the issue. The Yankee game ends. We go back to our car. Put a little more sunscreen on. Sit in the car, air conditioner for
You with the girlfriend,
10
right?
minutes. Yes.
Okay.
Me and her. So we have a few hours. So the place that I wanted to go to, which you recommended, was a 40-minute walk.
Okay.
So we're okay, we have time to kill. We're going to walk there.
I wouldn't recommend walking, but
Yeah. We're also, we're from
understand.
Jersey City. We're kind of used to that kind of area. We
Sure.
weren't too worried. So we walked. This place called Angelo's. You recommended it.
Wait. You walked to Angelo's?
Yes. 40 minutes. 40 minutes.
And tell me what happens when you get to Angelo's, because I see the photo of your cheesesteak, and it ain't Angelo's.
It's not Angelo's. So we walk. Again, we We probably get there around 5 o'clock, a little after 5. Get to Angelo's. Nobody's there. There's a sign on the window.
Oh, no.
Closed for vacation Wednesday, 8/31 to August 7th, I think it was.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
And I'm livid, and now I'm in scramble mode because it's already after 5. We got to get back to the link where there's still traffic because now all the people are going to the soccer game. So now I
Did you walk back?
No.
Okay.
But I was like, what do I do? So
you were panicking.
And we already passed Pat's and Gino's, the two places.
The tourist traps that you went
to. The tourist traps that we went to because they were on the way. Maybe 5 to 10 minutes.
And you were not from Philadelphia, or you didn't ever live in Philadelphia?
No. And again, Del Sandro's, I looked. It was like a 15-minute drive.
Away.
It was a 15-minute drive.
You weren't getting you weren't getting Del Sandro's. I also said Mama's my favorite place. That's in Bala Cynwyd.
Yeah.
I recommended a place to you on the way in Mount Laurel. Lilo's Tomato Pies. There is a bunch of other places though in that area. Whether it's Ishkabibbles, whether it is Joe's Soda Shop, Sonny's Famous Steaks. There's enough spots there, but you were panicking.
I was in a panic.
And you were upset, and you were annoyed, and you were furious because, let's remind everyone, it took you 4 hours to get to Philadelphia, stuck in traffic, driving from North Jersey. You then get to the game. You want to keep your car there, so you either had to walk, get an Uber, get a Subway, whatever. Then you walk 50 minutes to Angelo's, and you see hungry, right? You're hungry. At that point,
we had a couple things at the Phillies game, but yes, we were waiting for the cheesesteaks. That was the main event food-wise.
And you walk all the way there, and you get a sign right in your face.
Vacation time.
So that's why you ended at Pat's and Gino's.
That's right. And again, maybe I should have called you. I should have. I should have done something, but I was
But I'm
in a
on the
panic.
air probably at that time.
I was in a panic. I was like, okay, we got to get cheesesteaks, or else
called
we're
me.
going to get cheesesteaks at the game. That's the only other way we were going to get cheesesteaks.
Yeah, they have, I think, the Tony Luke's there, but you don't want to, you don't want a ballpark
sitting there
cheesesteak.
for 20 minutes.
Yeah. It's fine, but you don't want a ballpark cheesesteak. You wanted an authentic Philly cheesesteak shop.
So we got Pat's and Gino's.
Now, let me be clear, because people could be listening that have attended Pat's and Gino's. If you're going to Philadelphia for dinner, that's not my preeminent cheesesteak spot. Pat's and Gino's, to me, this is the only times I've really been there. Whether it was for a fraternity event when I was at a fraternity in college, or if, let's just say, you had too much to drink or you had too much to smoke and you got hungry late night, they're open. So it's a good drunk, puff kind of cheesesteak spot. That's the best way that I would say, because that's what's open at the time. Now, who did you think was better, Pat's or Gino's?
I thought Pat's was better.
I think Pat's is slightly better as well.
Gino's
from what I can remember.
was the steak was too, I'm not going to say it's like a
dry
one you get at the grocery store freezer, but it was, the steak was dry and it was too big. Pat's was more chopped up. I thought Pat's was fine.
What a disaster,
Gino's.
So then how did you guys walk back?
No, we Ubered back.
Oh, so you Ubered back.
But even then, it was cutting it close. We didn't get back till
And how
close
was
to
the
7.
soccer game? Because there are some animals that attend these soccer games.
Yeah, soccer game was great.
And I think just, the fans that basically think they could just fight players and other fans in the stands. It's just ridiculous. Was it a tamed crowd?
Pretty tame. I mean, we're chanting at each other in terms of the Liverpool fans at the Arsenal fans and vice versa. And
this game meant nothing, right?
That's correct. It's a friendly. Preseason friendly. The season starts in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Man, see, there's a lot of things that stood out to me for your trip.
Okay, yeah.
I think in my personal frustration with you,
the cheesesteak's number one?
No, honestly, I would have thought going into the segment it would be, but the way you explained it, the cheesesteak's last. I understand it. You were panicking, and you're in a place that you're not really familiar with, and you're going off what you've just seen, and you've heard the reputation, right? Pat's, Gino's. Oh, you got to go to Pat's and Gino's.
We took a picture of it, and we're not going here. We're going into this place.
And I'm not going to crush Stu for not calling ahead to make sure Angelo's is open, because I recommended you, Mom, as I said, make sure you call and make sure that they're open, because their hours are wonky. But for Angelo's, they're so slammed all the time. I don't even think they pick up their phone, quite frankly.
And I looked on Google Maps, whatever. It just said 11 to 7. I'm like, okay, it's open. Okay. I didn't think they'd be on vacation.
I would say my personal frustration, if I was in your position, the 4-hour traffic is is probably the worst.
Yes, definitely.
Then 2, it's almost 1A, is walking the 50 minutes and then getting rejected by the cheesesteak place.
Yes.
I think those are the 2 biggest infractions, but I will say this. 2 sporting events in one day, Stu, on an off day? That's a lot. That is a lot.
We didn't get back till after 12, just a little after 12, so it was pretty much a 14-hour day.
When did the soccer match end?
Like 9:50, 9:45, 9:50.
Quick drive back.
Yeah, 2 hours basically.
Ack.
I'm on board with Stewie.
Oh, you gave me a thumbs
great.
up. I thought you were giving me a thumbs up.
Oh yeah, no, that's a great day. So,
well, minus the traffic and the cheesesteak.
Didn't you use Waze? Always use Waze.
I did not, but my
GPS. You only learn the hard way.
I have a good Waze story real quickly. I was driving back from Temple one day from Philadelphia.
University.
Yes, university. Not shul. Not synagogue. I was driving back from Temple University, and I was on the bridge, and I will admit, there was standstill traffic. So I was checking my phone, and I didn't realize there was a cop behind me. And I hear the sirens go off. So the officer walks up to me, and I did have my Waze up. And on Waze, you can report if a police officer's nearby. So someone must have done that. So the officer comes up to me, and he goes, "You were on your phone?" I go, "Yes." I lied to the officer. I'll admit this. I said, "Officer, I'm college student driving back from Temple University. Haven't done it in a while. My parents just recently moved." I said, "I thought I was lost, and I was just trying to put up my Waze and put the address in. There was a problem with it." He's like, "You really shouldn't do that, but I'll let you go. Let me just run your license plate and everything, make sure there's no problem. Like there's nothing, no priors." As he's walking away, after telling me he's going to let me off, the Waze app goes off. He goes, "Police officer." 200 feet away. And the officer goes, "Are you tracking me?" And I go, no. Like, he didn't know what Waze was, the officer, which was, like, crazy for me to believe. Yeah. I'm like, it's this app. It tells you if there's police. It tells you if there's construction, potholes. He goes, "Oh, okay." Yes. Ran what he needed to run, and then told me that I was
very nice.
okay.
But the double event in one day is a
That's
great
a lot.
thing. Oh no!
You have the stamina for that?
I did it. I've done it. I know. I once did Mets
back in '94.
Mets U.S. Open. Done that. That was great.
Okay.
And also did Giants Cowboys Game 4 of the National League Championship Series. Mets Cardinals. Yeah.
Okay. It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. The only thing I'll say is, come on. It was on a regular season baseball game and then some irrelevant soccer game that didn't mean anything.
I know, it's a big, soccer's nearby. You gotta go.
It's like going to a preseason football game.
No, you gotta go. It's
there's
a big
70,000 people there.
Yeah, 70,000 dopes.
Stewie, hats off to you. Where's
actually,
you didn't bring any cheesesteaks back then.
69,999 dopes. I will not call Stu a dope. That would be a little mean. Actually, I won't call your girlfriend a dope. I'll call you a dope.
Yeah, thanks.
We'll take a break. Come on back with the news brief update time first. Here is the Ackman Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Protect your home, auto, and save when you bundle. Get a quote at Progressive.com. The U.S. gets 2 more medals in gymnastics. Another gold for Simone Biles in the women's individual all-around as she wins again after not competing in the event in 2021, but winning the gold in 2016. Suni Lee, who did win the gold that year, took the bronze today. Katie Douglas adding another American gold, winning the 200-meter breaststroke. August begins with baseball teams set for the stretch run, and the NFL is back. The preseason begins tonight with a Hall of Fame game between the Bears and Texans. For fans, always great to see something new. It's a nice soft launch for 2024. For Texans coach D'Amico Ryans, it means something much different, a chance for players to make an impression and his team to improve on things.
It's really all 3 phases for me. Every phase, offense, defense, special team, we have a lot to improve on. Like, we're not where we want to be right now at this point in camp. No team is, right? It's a grind. It's a process of continuing to work to earn the right to be a good football team.
Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert, suffering from plantar fasciitis. He'll wear a boot for a couple of weeks. Is expected to be ready for the opener. Tristan Wirfs gets a 5-year extension from the Bucs. I'm Rich Ackerman.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is, play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
And this portion of the show is sponsored by Hyundai's bold family of EVs that bring a new kind of energy to your journey. The Ioniq 5 and 5-in Ioniq 6 and Kona Electric, the most electric EV lineup. Let's go to Aaron Rodgers on his heated exchange that was captured on social media with wide receiver Garrett Wilson.
There's often appearance versus reality in life and on the football field, and what it appears to be might not always be what the reality actually is, as far as whether or not we're upset with each other. We're just passionately talking about the details of a situation that might not have to do with either of us. G and I got a great relationship. We spend time together off the field. On the field, there's a way of doing things that we both agree on. And when it doesn't look exactly how we want it to, sometimes there's some side conversations that happen. I love those conversations, though. I mean, it's about the details. It's about winning. It's about seeing what he sees. You know, he's got to get on my page, but I got to get on his page, too, because he's got a whole book that I need to understand fully of skill set and ability and feel and rhythm.
He's still
and
talking?
all the different things that he does out there. So those are good conversations. They might appear to be much more heated than they are. But there's usually a smile on our face afterwards, at least one of us.
Are you serious? Now, let me just say this. I saw the video. Did I think it was that big of a deal? No. And I'm usually one of those guys, when you see an exchange on a sideline or exchange on a practice field, it's a sport that elicits a lot of emotion. I don't have a problem with it. You have highly competitive guys, and there's going to be disagreements. But that was a minute and 1 second response. And Rodgers makes it basically as there's a higher level to football that us regular people can't understand. And he makes it out as this is some like intellectual, like crazy formula behind this. Like, just say, speak like a regular dude there. We got into an argument. We're having a heated discussion, and we're all good. That's football. Done. 5 seconds. Not a minute and 1 second of bull crap. What you basically just heard. Or actually, let me channel my inner Coach Prime there. Bull junk. I like the word bull junk better than bull crap. Let's go to Davante Adams. He was with CBS's Jonathan Jones. We'll hear more from Davante Adams later on all the talk about him wanting out of the Raiders.
It was extremely annoying. Still is. I mean, it's definitely not over as far as how people continue to speak on it. But, you know, the offseason is boring, so they need things to talk about. And unfortunately, you know, with the dramas that we have, talking about 1-7 gets some clicks. So, you know, they take advantage of that to kind of, you know, get people's attention. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm not the one that's feeding any of that stuff. And my teammates know that. My family knows that. And, you know, I'm just focused on being the best player I can be to come out here and help this team have a chance at holding up that trophy at the end of the year.
Jonathan Jones is a solid reporter. I have a lot of respect for him. I don't know what the follow-up is, but when you have a player say, that's not what 1-7 was thinking, you know, I didn't start that. I didn't stir up the drama. My response to, and you're a Raiders fan, so this probably hits closer to you, well, your BFF Aaron Rodgers keeps on talking about it. So what do you make of that? That Aaron Rodgers basically wants to get you and wants you back on his team. Isn't that the logical follow-up there? And also, let's not pretend like Davante Adams has never contributed to this entire thing as well. Like, just because he says he hasn't doesn't mean he hasn't in that spot.
I totally agree with you. I think the Rodgers part is very fascinating because even though Adams of late hasn't really said much of that, it's been a lot of Rodgers, and there's something to that for sure.
I was not expecting my former college radio partner, Chase Sr., to wind up on News Brief today. But I guess, Chase is now covering the 49ers. It's for Chat Sports. And Chase is breaking down Brandon Ayuk at 49ers training camp, who's in the middle of a contract dispute, dapping up, which means shaking hands, with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. Here is 49 seconds of analysis on a handshake.
Yesterday, the video that everybody is talking about from Niners training camp. Brandon Ayuk walks onto the practice field wearing all black, non-team issued gear, and he daps up John Lynch, then he daps up Kyle Shanahan, and they exchanged a hug. What do we make of this? Could a deal get done before the end of the week? Is Brandon Ayuk about to get traded at some point this week? Does he know that a deal is looming, that he's about to get the bag? I think that when you look at that clip, there was some positive energy from Lynch with that handshake. He put some mustard behind it, and then Kyle Shanahan went in for the dap as well as the bro hug. So if things were hostile between Ayuk, Lynch, and Shanahan, I don't know if there would be that type of embrace. But we are left to wonder what it means.
Oh boy, you thought Aaron Rodgers could ramble. Chase, what are we doing there, my man? 49 seconds on a handshake? And I said from the start, I believe Brandon Ayuk will eventually, whether it's this year or next year, get a deal from the 49ers, and then they'll trade Deebo Samuel a year from now. And watch, maybe today or tomorrow he'll end up getting the deal. But am I supposed to think, because Brandon Ayuk shows up and has a handshake with Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, that means everything's all good and the deal's going to happen? That's why I despise OTAs, training camps, and quite frankly, like everyone that has to cover them and talk about them on a daily basis. Because you make a big deal out of nothing. 50 seconds of analysis on a freaking handshake. You know, I'm going to go shake hands with someone I don't like. And then maybe we'll get 50 seconds of analysis. Ooh, does this mean Zach now likes it? Like, come on. The guy's at practice. He sees John Lynch. He sees Kyle Shanahan. He shakes their hand. Everyone's freaking out about this. Oh, this means a deal's coming. Oh, here comes a deal. I now know a deal's going to happen in the next 24 hours, but I really hope it doesn't. Because then people are going to be like, see, look, that handshake actually meant something. The things that we break down this time of the year. Very, very sad. It is very, very sad. All righty. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll talk more about Davante Adams next. He says he has one thing missing in his legendary career to cement his legacy. I think it's pretty obvious what he's referring to, but does he need that to cement his legacy? That's the question. We'll respond to it when we come on back. Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 coming up next. We'll talk to Davante Adams. JP Shadrick going to stop by to preview the Jacksonville Jaguars. And also later in the show, NFL Top 100 is out. Not the top 10, but the top 90 players. And there's a interesting thing that we need to discover. We'll do that also in hour number 2.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Rock and roll in hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right, Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. JP Shadrick coming up 20 minutes from now. We'll preview the Jacksonville Jaguars season. We'll check in Duval. But first, I got 2 audio clips here on Davante Adams. One you already heard. We'll play it for you again. And there's another one, but I think it's important to play the one that we've already heard one more time, just so it could set up the next one. This is Davante Adams with CBS's very own Jonathan Jones on all the talk about him wanting out of his current situation with the Las Vegas Raiders.
It was extremely annoying. Still is. I mean, it's definitely not over as far as how people continue to speak on it. But, you know, the offseason is boring, so they need things to talk about. And unfortunately, you know, with the dramas that we have, talking about 1-7 gets some clicks. So, you know, they take advantage of that to kind of, you know, get people's attention. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm not the one that's feeding any of that stuff. And my teammates know that. My family knows that. And, you know, I'm just focused on being the best player I can be to come out here and help this team have a chance at holding up that trophy at the end of the year.
So, you could say classy response by Davante Adams, even though, right, as we've talked about, he does contribute to the speculation about his future, and he has been frustrated with the Raiders before, but then Antonio Pierce became the head coach, Josh McDaniels out, Jimmy Garoppolo benched, and he wanted to give the Raiders another go at it. So I respect that. Even though Aaron Rodgers, basically every time he opens his mouth, he tries to further add the fuel to the fire of Davante Adams forcing his way out of the Raiders and a lot of other people as well. So I don't think we are necessarily, right? Because people, they're quick to say, oh, you're only saying that for clicks. Oh, you're only saying that for views. Yes, it is I will fully admit, it's our goal to generate clicks and it's our goal to generate views. But I think there's a difference in going out of your way to do something for clicks and do something for views, which I don't do, and then just providing and talking about things that are fair to talk about that then generate and garner attention. I think there is a difference if you could understand that. And when you look at Davante Adams and you want to have a honest conversation about Davante Adams, he set it up there at the end. He's doing everything he can to try to hold up a Lombardi trophy at the end of the year. Let me be abundantly clear with Davante Adams. Davante, you could have the greatest season we've ever seen in the history of the National Football League from a wide receiver. Your team isn't winning a Super Bowl this year. The odds of the Raiders even making the playoffs are minuscule. So Davante Adams could be the perfect teammate. Davante Adams could be the best player in the league. He could be, right? If everything went his way, right, he could be the best wide receiver, the best player in the league. He could have an all-time great season. And there is no way the Raiders will be hoisting a Lombardi trophy at the end of the year, let alone just being in the game. And I don't think that's crazy to say. It's not like we're talking about a good team. It's not like we're talking about a team that I expect them to actually do something. But, Stu, if the Raiders have a season that would make you being a Raiders fan, jump up and down like a fat kid in a candy store this year, what would that entail? What would that be?
Over 500. I say 9-8, and I would be very happy with that.
See? So that's Stu saying, you just give me a 9-8 season, I'll be happy. Davante, you will have the greatest individual season we've ever seen from a wide receiver. You're not winning a Super Bowl this year with Gardner Minshew or Aiden O'Connell and a defense that, let's say, has Max Crosby, who is great. You have Christian Wilkins, who is great. And Stu, outside of that, are there any players that really make you say, okay, the Raiders have serious players on the defensive side of the ball? Spillane, he's still there?
That's the guy, yeah. That's the guy who I was going to bring up. But again, I wouldn't say great, like, transformational type of guy. No,
I still can't believe, by the way, that Antonio Pierce, remember, this was on the broadcast, his first game as the interim coach. I forget when it was, but it was a primetime game, if memory serves me right. I remember watching it. And he said, we're going to build our identity on the offensive side of the ball is Josh Jacobs, and on the defensive side of the ball, when you have Max Crosby, who is nationally underappreciated. And it's good that he's in the top 10 for the top 100 list, because I didn't think that would be the case, but that's voted on by the players. And I know he's in the top 15 last year, but Max Crosby is a stud. I think he's the third. You could make the case he's the third best defensive player in football. You could. Now, I think Watt and Garrett are 1 and 2. If you want to throw Chris Jones into the mix, I could understand, right? Micah Parsons is going to be in the conversation. If the Bosa's are ever healthy, they're in the conversation. They're secondary players, but I really do believe the 3 best defensive players in the NFL. There's interior defensive linemen, too, that you could think of. But if you ask me, Zach, who are the best 3 pass rushers? Let's do it that way in the NFL. I would say TJ Watt 1, Myles Garrett 2, Max Crosby 3. But I always found that funny, Stu, how Antonio Pierce was like, yeah, offensive, our identity player is going to be Josh Jacobs, who now no longer with the team with the Packers, and then defensively was going to be Robert Spillane when you have Max Crosby. But it shows how good of a player Robert Spillane is.
He is. It is just funny, though. He's kind of, I'm not going to say that he's a journeyman, but like he's just, when he first came into the league, he was kind of just like a guy, and like you said, to build a defense around, that's interesting.
He's a good player.
Good player, yes.
That was a tackle machine for you guys last year. He had like 150 tackles or something like that. He had a lot of tackles, and he was coming over for Pittsburgh. Like, he's a good player. But when you talk about face of the defense, it's Max Crosby. Heck, right now, who's the face of the Raiders?
It's Crosby.
It's Crosby. Yeah. Davante Adams may be the most popular player nationally, but I think if we talk to the true Raiders fans, like, who are those two guys that I met at the draft? Wayne something, and then the guy that was dressed up as a gorilla, too. Whoever those two guys were, those crazy Raiders fans, when JR and I were hosting at the time CBS Sports Radio's coverage of the NFL draft. It was right after I had some viral interview with Darren Waller. And these two Raiders fans came up to JR and I, and they were like, we love CBS Sports Radio. We love how even though the Raiders aren't that good, you guys are always talking about them. Can you look up who those two crazy super
Wayne,
fans were?
the Violator is one of them.
Yeah, Wayne the Violator. And then there was some gorilla. Like, he was dressed up as a gorilla. But very nice guys. But those guys, like the true Raider fan, will tell you their favorite player is Max Crosby. Like, I'm not saying they dislike Davante Adams. Why should you dislike
Gorilla
Davante
Rilla
Adams?
is the other guy.
Gorilla Rilla. So Wayne the what? What was it?
Wayne the Violator.
Wayne the Violator, and you got to give me the gorilla name one more time. Gorilla Rilla?
Gorilla Rilla.
And Gorilla Rilla. I hope those guys are well. I haven't talked to them in a while, but those guys would tell you the franchise player for the Raiders right now is Max Crosby. But with all that being said, you look at Davante Adams, he could be annoyed that people are talking about his future. I think he does contribute to it a bit. And we know Aaron Rodgers definitely contributes to it a bit. But if his goal is to win a championship, which he says at the end of the clip, well, you're not winning a championship with the Raiders. You got, including this year, 3 years left on your deal. If everything goes right with the Raiders, Stu, in 2024, 2025, 2026, can you see this team with Patrick Mahomes in your division winning a championship? I can't. I can't see it whatsoever. So it makes you think, right, Stu? If he keeps on talking about a Super Bowl and how much he wants to be there, when does the expiration date internally for him where he realizes, and not only realizes it, but then says, I want out with the Raiders?
Yeah, and ironically, the only way I could see that happening is if they bottom out this year and get a franchise quarterback, and maybe that franchise quarterback is a Mahomes level guy. But
Fair.
If they bottom out, he's not going to be on the team next year.
So
if they go 3-14, let's say, and
would
get the
you
number
agree
one
with
pick,
this? The only reason Davante Adams is on the team this year is because of Antonio Pierce and his respect for Antonio Pierce. So if you agree with that,
yeah,
then next year, I don't think just because of the respect you have for Antonio Pierce, if you feel like you can't win a Super Bowl there, is enough where you're going to stay. And I don't think this year anything Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell do, even at their best, is going to make Davante Adams think he actually has a franchise quarterback. So I guess with what you're saying, if let's say they do bottom out, you would think then he would request a trade. And I would agree with that. However, I still think there's a way that they bottom out, and if they're willing to get their hands dirty a little bit and maybe have a month or two where it's icy and it's contentious and he's dragging the team's name through the mud, where you could still keep him there and have him back for the next season. And it's all dependent on who's that next quarterback. Because he's under contract for 2 more years after the season. So they could say, wait until draft night. Just give us till draft night. And let's say they draft Shador Sanders. Does that name moves the needle for him? I don't know. But maybe they do something crazy on draft night that gets him a franchise quarterback, and Davante Adams like, oh, I actually like that. I'll stay. Or Dak Prescott, a free agent at the end of the year. Dak, say what you want about him. He is a good established quarterback. If you tell Davante Adams next year you could be catching passes from Dak Prescott, that's someone that I think would make him be more inclined to stay with the Raiders. You know, maybe they trade for Kirk Cousins. Because even though I think a lot of us believe Kirk Cousins will be in Atlanta for 2 years and then they'll hand the baton over to Michael Penix Jr., I think that's the Falcons' plan. I don't believe that's Kirk Cousins' plan. Kirk Cousins will probably try to find a way out of Atlanta after this season, knowing that Michael Penix Jr. is waiting there in the wings. So what I'm getting at here, though, with you, Stu, is I think all those things are far-fetched, though. And in all likelihood, the Raiders are not going to be that good this year. The Raiders aren't going to have a franchise quarterback. And at the end of the year, he's going to say, okay, I still want to win a Super Bowl, and I'm going to try to force my way out. But here's more of Davante Adams talking about what he needs to cement his legacy, and it's more of that conversation about winning a Super Bowl. Once again, this was CBS's very own Jonathan Jones.
The biggest thing that I'm missing and the hardest thing to end up with at the end of this thing is a Super Bowl. So in my mind, that's really all that I'm truly worried about. And, I'm going to continue to push to try to get that, because without that, I'm going to definitely feel incomplete. The All-Pros, I've done that. I've made several Pro Bowls and all these things. And those mean a little bit less because I've already established that that's a part of, my, who I am as a player and my standards.
So you keep on talking about a Super Bowl. Now, let me just say this. Two things. One, we also forgot Christian Wilkins on the defensive side of the ball for the Raiders. So that's another player that is enormous in there. Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, Robert Spillane, just some of the big names on the defensive side of the ball. But when we get back to that Adams clip, does he need a Super Bowl to cement his legacy? Like, internally, I know why he says that, because he's done everything he basically could do as a wide receiver. Was a first-team All-Pro without Aaron Rodgers, which was important to him. But is there anything he really needs to do that's going to change his legacy? Like, if he retires in 3 years from now without a Super Bowl, are we saying Davante Adams isn't a Hall of Famer? Of course he's a Hall of Famer. He's definitely going to be a Hall of Famer. Now, I'm not saying I don't understand what he's saying. I understand what he's saying, and he should say that. Because when you check off all the boxes, the only thing he has not done is winning a Super Bowl. But this isn't a quarterback. For quarterbacks and coaches, those are the only two positions in the NFL where we're like, does that player have a Super Bowl or not? Like, Terrell Owens is arguably he's a third best wide receiver of all time. Doesn't have a Super Bowl. Randy Moss, the second best wide receiver of all time. Doesn't have a Super Bowl. Jerry Rice, we all know, has multiple. But it feels like when we talk about legacy in the NFL, the only time we use the Super Bowl part in that conversation is for quarterback and coaches. So, yes, Davante Adams should want to win a Super Bowl. Davante Adams should only play on a team at this stage of his career that he feels like he can one day win a Super Bowl with. And I don't think that's with the Raiders. But if Davante doesn't get that Super Bowl, I'm not sitting here and saying, oh, now all of a sudden Davante Adams isn't a Hall of Famer and he can't be viewed as a great wide receiver because he doesn't have that ring. We only do that for quarterback and coaches. And that's just the way that the cookie crumbles, really, in the National Football League. All right, we'll talk some more football when we come on back. We continue to preview each team around the league. I'm very intrigued by the Jaguars this year. I don't think a lot of people are talking about them. A lot of people were disappointed with them a year ago because, right, they made the playoffs, they had that epic comeback, and then they regressed. But I think a lot of people have forgot about the Jaguars, and I am expecting the Jaguars to make the postseason this year. So we'll get a little read on the Jacksonville Jaguars with JP Shadrick, who does a great job for the Jaguars when we come on back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Football season is right around the corner.
Holding himself, runs to the left, he's to the 5, Lamar's in, touchdown Ravens! They're going to have a championship game in Baltimore because the Hayes of the barn!
Will it be your team's year to hoist the Lombardi?
In the shotgun, Mahomes, he runs and he throws, caught, touchdown, it's caught, Hardman caught the ball, the Chiefs have won! The Chiefs have won! The entire bench empties! Chasing Mahomes in the end zone. Their third Super Bowl in 5 years.
We preview all 32 teams right here on the Zach Gelb Show. The Jacksonville Jaguars.
All righty, and we'll preview the Jacksonville Jaguars right now with one of our favorites, JP Shadrick, who does a great job covering the team. And also works for Westwood One Sports. There's a lot of times in the college football season where I'm driving around in my car. And I don't like to be driving around in my car when there's college football games going on, but when I need to, I turn on the radio, and I hear JP Shadrick, and I don't care what game it is, and they give him a lot of big games, but it sounds like an enormous game that he is calling. He does a tremendous job here for us at Westwood One Sports, and he's kind enough to preview the Jags with us right now. JP, how you been, my man?
Zach, I'm great, man. Football's back, and this is a really fun part of the year. It's a really hot part of the year in Jacksonville, Florida, so we're kind of dealing with the heat. That's what it is in training camp, but that means we are counting down to kickoff, finally.
Well, let me start you off with the quarterback, Trevor Lawrence. He's been in the news a lot because of the deal that he did get. For people that say, I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is worth the money. I don't know what Trevor Lawrence is going to turn into. What do you believe the Jaguars have through some good moments and some bad moments through the first 3 years of Trevor Lawrence's career?
You know, I think a lot of the Trevor Lawrence story might have been told in his rookie year when he had to deal with all the Urban Meyer drama and everything that happened there. He was the guy that had to go out there every week in front of the media and answer questions that he probably shouldn't have to answer as a rookie. So you saw some of his resilience in some tough moments, I think, in that rookie year, and that really laid the foundation for when things got right on the football side, that there was some success there, and he had his head right, and he had the right people around him. And you saw the success at the end of the 22 season where they had to rally back and win some games. And, he was fantastic down the stretch. The defense was great as well. But then last year they started out strong. He battled some injuries and just wasn't the same. They had some changes in the offensive line. But I think with Trevor Lawrence, you didn't want to go into this season with him having to prove that he was the franchise quarterback moving ahead. I think they wanted to get it done now. They've known from that first season that he's the guy that they want around here for the long term, and there's confidence that he can build into the consistency that they expect from that type of position and the number one pick. So go ahead and get it done now, and the number's only going to go up. And if it's done now, okay, you can set the salary cap and everything around your salary cap around that number for the next 7 years. So those are some of the reasons behind it. There's still growth to be had there for Lawrence. And I think this season will be a big stepping stone for him now, year 3 in Doug Peterson's offense.
As long as he's healthy, and that's a big part of the equation, what type of year do you envision individually for Trevor Lawrence?
Well, I mean, if he has all his pieces around him, too, right? If he's healthy and he's got Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram all year, yes, the addition of Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. are nice, but Ingram and Kirk really run this thing. And if he has time to get it out to those guys down the field a little bit more maybe than last year, I think he can be right there in the, well above 4,000 yards this season. And he threw a bunch of interceptions last year, and he fumbled the ball a lot. He's got to do a better job of hanging on to the football, and he's made that a point early in training camp. Ball protection, yes, you can't hit the quarterback in training camp, I get it. But, hanging on to the football in the pocket, 2 hands on it, being aware when running with it, because he does utilize his legs a good bit. There was just some fumbles where he just dropped the ball on his own and wasn't even stripped out of his hands a couple of times last year. So just awareness of where he is on the field at times, running with the football, hanging on to it. And if that goes away, then I think just naturally things will progress in the right direction for Trevor Lawrence. And especially if those pieces around him are healthy, this is an offense that can go out. And they said it before last year. They wanted to score 30 points per game last season. Didn't work out. I wouldn't be shocked if that's the goal again this season, though they might not come out and say it this time around.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the wide receivers, JP Shadrick, because I don't know if any of them individually are great wide receivers. I think Christian Kirk is underappreciated. Remember, he got slammed for the deal, and he had a 1,000-yard season, got hurt last year, and was well on his way to doing that once again. But as a unit, it's a pretty good wide receiving unit. Kirk, Davis, Brian Thomas Jr., as I mentioned, Evan Ingram, they got some solid players there, and I know you always want one individually great guy, and some teams have 2 great guys, but as a unit, I don't think this is a unit that you look at and you go, okay, the Jaguars can have a really successful season with the guys that they have.
And this is an offense, Zach, that Doug Peterson, Press Taylor, the offensive coordinator, put together with the mindset that, hey, we can move these pieces around. They don't need a true number. They would love one. That'd be great if they had a true number 1. Everybody would love one. But they can work with, if you will, number 2s and move them around different parts of the offense. That's the idea here. The Christian Kirk, yeah, he'll be a slot receiver a lot of the time, but he can line up outside if he needs to. And yes, Brian Thomas Jr. is a speedster down the field in theory. He's a rookie. But, hey, if he has a matchup inside that works, cool. Evan Ingram has the skill set to go outside and have a matchup advantage in some situations too. So the idea that you're stuck in one position here is not true at all. but you have to have the smarts to be able to do that and understand all pieces of the offense at all times. There was a past receiver here, Zay Jones, who, there was an instance a couple times where he was lined up in a spot. They didn't have time to switch, so he's just got to run Christian Kirk's route. So you have to know every route, every part of the offense in order for this thing to really click the way Press Taylor and Doug Peterson think about it. And they've got the skill set, at least these receivers, it feels like the top-tier guys do, to get that done.
JP Shadrick here with us. And I'd be remiss also, I know he's a running back, but he also catches the ball a ton as well.
Oh, yeah.
Travis Etienne Jr., I know you guys in Jacksonville understand how good he is. Clemson fans know how good he is. I know it's only been 2 years and he had the injury too. I don't think people appreciate how good, like we talk about underappreciated players in the league. What he's been able to do the last 2 years has really been sensational.
And last year especially, I mean, his first year obviously was hurt. He had the Liz Frank injury in the preseason and missed his rookie year, as you mentioned there. But then the first season on the field, his second year in the NFL, he was just getting blasted, it felt like, all the time. He would take hits and go head over heels, and you didn't know if he was going to be able to withstand all of that contact all the time. Well, last season it felt like he learned a little bit of, the patience it takes behind an offensive line for them to set up the blocks. You don't have to speed around the corner. You can wait for the guard to pull and make a block and get into that little crease, and then you make your move and go. And then when it got to the holes, he was just kind of running and kind of tiptoeing toward the holes early in the season. Well, running through the hole, not to the hole and through it, and that helped him as the season went along, and you saw some big-time runs for him. And, Press Taylor said it the other day, the offensive coordinator, that, having him in the passing game is going to be a big piece of what they do as well. They didn't do a lot of that in the past. I could see that being part of it as well. But if this team's running the ball well, I think that would be it's a huge balance for what they want to do in the passing game. And Etienne's great. Now, Tank Bigsby's got to have a big step in that too. He's the second running back, and they lost some trust in him early in his rookie season last year. He lost the ball, fumbled a couple times, but that confidence seems to be back. He's running better in training camp, protecting the football, and if he gets some reps, that gives Etienne some time off to the side. That could help him come December and January.
I have a lot of respect, JP Shadrick, for not only you, but also Doug Peterson, the coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. I got to know him a little bit when he was in Philly, right? Saw him lead the Eagles to their first ever Super Bowl with Nick Foles and win that Super Bowl, I should say. And then the following year, right, Wentz got hurt again. Foles was in the divisional round. If Alshon Jeffrey could have just caught that ball, if it didn't go right off his hands, they're probably back in the NFC Championship game again. And then Wentz was finally able to be healthy, then gets hurt up against the Seahawks in a wild card game. And we know it bottomed out towards the end, and I thought he was unfairly fired, or they moved on from him. Then he lands in Jacksonville, playoffs in the first year. Second year, they regressed. How do you, though, think the league views Doug Peterson? Because even in Philly, when he was there was even questions, even after winning a Super Bowl, on what Doug Peterson is as a coach, which was crazy to me.
I wonder if that's just Philly talking. You know how Philly is. It's a little different of a marketplace, and they kind of go after you pretty quick there. And he loves Philadelphia. It still does to this day.
And now he's a god there, to be clear.
Right. They have a statue of the guy in the parking lot. I mean, him and the quarterback. So, no, and that's sometimes it ends that way. It rarely ends the right way in the NFL. Like, a lot of times you're going to get fired, even if things happen. He took a year off. He reset. He came and took a different team to the playoffs in year one, and they were 8-3 last year. And no excuses. However, the injury bug bit. They couldn't find their way to. They lost 5 of the last 6 games of the season, and they couldn't get it done when they needed to at the end. Quarterbacks hurt, offensive lines hurt, receivers, whatever. That's fine. But they were right there on the doorstep. It felt like so. If he's able to get them back to the promised land this year, the playoffs, and division title again. And I don't know how many guys have won Super Bowls at 2 different teams. That obviously would put him on a different stratosphere if he's able to get it done here in Jacksonville. And they feel like they have the parts at least to have a division title run. And from there, you never know once you get to the playoffs. So I think around here, he has the full respect of everybody in Jacksonville already still. I don't think the clock's not ticking or anything like that. I think he's in good shape. The quarterback's in good shape for a while. The defensive end's in good shape for a while. They've got some cornerstone pieces here. Why would you want to even consider breaking that up unless there's some just tremendous disaster of the season that we don't see ahead of time. So I think the owner wants to win, and he wants to win now. And I think he's made that pretty clear to the organization and the team. However, I think they have a team that's ready to go win right now. And they are a division champion if they can go overtake the Texans, because they're going to be very good as well.
And here's the thing, that division's really good. Like, even Tennessee, who's the worst team in the division, they got some players on that roster. Indianapolis almost made the playoffs last year without their quarterback. We know the Jaguars fell back a little bit, but they were still a solid squad and won the division a season ago. And the Texans, right, they have everything cooking when they couldn't get anything cooking for about 4 or 5 years. I actually think the Jaguars are gonna win this division. Now, it's not me saying that the Texans are going to faceplant from what they did last year. I think they're going to make the playoffs too. But it feels like the South can send 2 teams to the playoffs this year, and I'm expecting a big bounce-back season from the Jaguars. And I think they're getting slept on where not a lot of people are talking about them because they disappointed towards the end of the season a year ago.
And it's the same thing the Jags went through last year, right, Zach? I mean, the Jags were the great new team who had won the division.
Ready to take the next step like the Texans are perceived to this year.
And then they faltered, right? How do the Texans handle that spotlight? They've got personnel down there that's fantastic. I get it. But it's a little different when you have that target on you and teams are gunning for you each week. So this is a great division. And Indy, don't count those guys out either. When all of a sudden their quarterback is back, if he's healthy, the way he plays, let's see if he can stay healthy as the season goes along. They're nothing to take lightly as well. So this is a competitive division. And, I mean, the Jaguars should be right there on the doorstep again. The schedules, all schedules in the NFL are tough. We get that. But 3 of the first 4 for the Jaguars are on the road, including down in Houston, the 4th one of them. They come home for a game against Indy. They go to London for 2 weeks this year again. And then they've got the NFC North coming to town for a few weeks. That's all before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, you guys have a gauntlet of a schedule. It's
difficult. So if they can get through this first, 2/3 of the season around 500 and get to the back end where 4 or 6 are at home, 2 against Tennessee, yes, we're playing schedule football. That's fine. You got to go play it on the field. If they can get through the early part of this gauntlet, I think they're in really good shape.
Last thing I'll ask you, JP Shadrick, defensively, I know they brought in Armstead. You have Josh Hines-Allen, who's phenomenal. Trayvon Walker started to show more than a pulse a year ago. I know they lost Rayshon Jenkins in free agency this past year, who was a good player for them. I remember 2 years ago the game he had up against Dallas. But how do you evaluate this defense heading into this season?
Well, it's new. They've got a new coordinator in Ryan Nielsen who comes in, and it feels like they'll have a few more 4-down looks on the defensive line. They were truly a 3-4 in the last couple of years. There'll be still some of that look also, but they're mainly going to be a 4-down lineman. So in theory, it's Josh Hines-Allen on one end, Eric Armstead on the big end. You got Devon Hamilton at nose tackle. We'll see if he's healthy. He had some back issues last year. Those are 3 of the 4 up front. Linebackers, Devin Lloyd needs to take a step this year, another first-round pick from a couple years ago. Foye Oluokun just signed another contract with the Jaguars, and he was the leading tackler in the league for a couple years with Atlanta and then with Jacksonville again. But the secondary is different now. They've had some changes there. They brought in some veteran players. They got Tyson Campbell. They locked him down on a long contract at corner. They've got Andre Sisco, who is in a contract year, his 4th year in the NFL out of Syracuse at one safety. And then everything else is kind of up for grabs right now. And they brought in some veteran players. You mentioned Eric Armstead, 10-year player. They also brought in 10th-year cornerback Ronald Darby, who will have some time on this team. He'll probably be on the other side of it. Darnell Savage, a guy who's a veteran in the league, will probably play some safety for them. They've got Antonio Johnson, a guy they drafted a couple years ago out of A&M, who will play some of that kind of hybrid nickel safety thing. So it's a new feel. They want their cornerbacks to play press and get up on the line a good bit. That'll be a different style than they've had around here in the last couple of years. And let's see what happens. But they've got some pretty strong personnel and some veteran players that have played a lot of football on this defense. It's not like they're running out a bunch of rookies, so they should be able to compete. And certainly the first week of training camp, the news around here was that the Jaguars defense was intercepting Trevor Lawrence, left and right. It changed, of course, in week 2. It always happens that way. So everybody was all fired up about the defense and concerned about the quarterback, but all is back well again here in Duval.
He is JP Shadrick, does a great job covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for the organization. You could also hear him on many of these same stations in college football season for Westwood One, calling a bunch of big games for Westwood One. JP, thank you so much for doing this.
You're the man, Zach. Always great to be with you. Appreciate it.
You got it. There he is. Good deal. There he is, JP Shadrick, joining us on the Infinity Sports Network. And he brings up a great point about the schedule. At Miami to open the year for the Jaguars. Cleveland. Then Buffalo, at Houston, the Colts, Chicago. Then you get the Patriots, my team, Cupcake, Green Bay, Philadelphia, Minnesota, at Detroit, bye week, Houston, Tennessee, the Jets, the Raiders, Tennessee, and Indianapolis. So that schedule doesn't really soften up for a large stretch until December 8th. Tennessee, Jets, Raiders, Tennessee, Indy. You look at that schedule from week 1 to week 13, Miami, Cleveland, Buffalo, Houston, Indy, Chicago, New England, Green Bay, Philadelphia, Minnesota, Detroit. Bye week, Houston. Whew. That's a rough schedule. And I mean a rough schedule. It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We will take a break. The NFL Top 100 rankings are out. We'll get the top 10 tonight. But we know inside the top 20, back-to-back, we'll tell you where they did rank. We had Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott. Who is the better quarterback between the two? Is it Hurts or is it Prescott? We will give you my answer on the other side. Update time first. Here he is, the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, Simone Biles has done a beautiful 180 from the Tokyo Olympics and is back on top of the world. The Paris Games have belonged to the 27-year-old so far, winning another gold medal today, taking the all-around event. It's the 6th straight Olympics in which the U.S. has won that event. Biles also won it back in 2016. Another American, Suni Lee, won the bronze after winning gold in 2021. Another gold came in the pool where Katie Douglas won the 200-meter breaststroke, and Katie Ledecky became the most decorated American female Olympian ever with a silver medal in the 4x200-meter freestyle relay for her 13th medal. The NFL is back. August 1st means the first preseason game, the Hall of Fame game tonight in Canton between the Bears and the Texans. Chargers quarterback Justin Herbert expected to be ready for week 1, but he will spend the next 2 weeks in a walking boot due to plantar fasciitis, and the Bucs have made Tristan Wirfs the highest paid lineman in history, giving the 3-time Pro Bowler a 5-year, $140 million extension. Over $88 million is guaranteed, and Gordon Hayward announced his retirement after 14 NBA seasons. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Check out our new and improved website at infinitysportsnet.com. That's infinitysportsnet.com.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network, and this portion of the program is brought to you by Ethos Life, the easy way to get life insurance in 10 minutes, up to $2 million in coverage with no medical exam, and just a few health questions. Get your free quote at checkethos.com. Not available in all states. Good stuff with JP Shadrick. That division is a monster of a division this year. You know, we used to look at the AFC South and be like, all righty, who's going to win the division and who's going to be that 425, 430 wild card game on Saturday, right? That's usually how we looked at the AFC South. And I still don't think this is a division that nationally will be referred to as like a sexy division. But as someone that respects football like I do, I think this is a very good division. Like, even look at Tennessee, who is the bottom team in this division. They got DeAndre Hopkins. They got Calvin Ridley. You got Jeffrey Simmons, as long as he's not fighting any more radio hosts. You got Tony Pollard. You got L'Jarius Sneed. Like, they're names on that football team. There are good football players there. But the other three teams that have a good shot at making the playoffs, and all three of them won't, I think two will. But you got the Texans, who are basically the Jaguars, where the Jaguars were a year ago, right? Surprise people, you go from the bottom to the top, and now people are expecting you to take that next step. We'll see if the Texans regress or if they continue to soar. I love what the Texans did this offseason by adding Danielle Hunter and also adding Stephon Diggs. You have the Jaguars, who even in a bad season, and right, we've seen bad seasons from the Jaguars. We've seen like 1 or 2 win seasons. But even last year, what is referred to as a bad season for the Jaguars, that team was 9-8. All right, the Texans gave you last year a great punch. The Texans took the league by storm last year. The Jaguars fell off. And it was a 1-game difference between the Texans and the Jaguars, even with all the injuries the Jaguars did suffer. So if the Jaguars are healthy, I know they have a very tough schedule, as we just talked about, but that's a Jaguars team that should be a 10-11 win team. They should be. With their quarterback needing to be the guy from 2 years ago. And you look at Indianapolis, I really hope Anthony Richardson stays healthy. Because you have Richardson, Taylor, and Pittman Jr. Man, that could be a really fun offense to watch. And that's a team in Indianapolis also was 9-8 a year ago with all their injuries. So that AFC South, it's going to be fun. That's not a division where it's like, oh, we got to talk about the AFC South. They suck. Ugh. You know. It's like how we kind of talk about the NFC South now. All right, who wins the NFC South? Who gets the playoff spot from the NFC South? That's how we used to talk about the AFC South. Now the AFC South is like a happening division. All righty, the top 100 list, they give the final 10 spots tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. I have the names for you in alphabetical order of the final top 10 guys. We will discuss those coming up in 12 minutes from now at 5 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Pacific. But before we do that, when they were giving spots 100 to 11 out, you got inside the top 20. And when they were inside the top 20, C.J. Stroud was 20th, Roquan Smith was 19th, Justin Jefferson, I don't think there's 17 players better than Justin Jefferson in the league, but he got hurt last year. Micah Parsons was 17th. You had Dak Prescott 16th, Jalen Hurts 15th, George Kittle 14th. Stu, I don't know about you. George Kittle is a very good player, right? You would want George Kittle on your football team, but the 14th best player? And he got 1,000 yards last year. You know, George Kittle is a excellent player. I'm not trashing George Kittle here. But the 14th best player in the league? Yeah. That seems high to me.
Like 3 or 4 years ago, yes. But right now, I think at this stage, he is not. Again, like you said, still a good player.
He had a great season last year.
Still one of the best tight ends in the league, but he's not a top 20 player now.
Maybe top 20, but 14th just seems way too early for me. CeeDee Lamb was 13. Josh Allen was 12. Quarterback Josh Allen. And then 11th was Fred Warner of the 49ers. So 2 reactions from this. Who do you think is the better player in the NFL, Stu? Micah Parsons or Dak Prescott?
Micah Parsons.
And they put Micah Parsons, the player, 17th, Dak Prescott, 16th. Now, it's a difference of 1 spot, right? But when I think of the Cowboys right now, who's the first player I think of? It's Micah Parsons. Like, if you ask me, who's their best player? It's Micah Parsons. And not only that, right? They put CeeDee Lamb 13th. So the NFL players are telling you CeeDee Lamb is 13, Dak Prescott is 16, and Micah Parsons is 17. Can I just ask a question? With how much Micah Parsons talks, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trashing Micah Parsons. We've been a recipient of Micah Parsons talking, saying stupid things to us, and then it producing a video, and this is not hyperbole, that had 4.5 million views just on Twitter off one video clip when he was trashing TJ Watt and said TJ Watt wasn't a top 5 pass rusher in the league. Asinine take, but that was the take. Is that the NFL players saying, yeah, we know Micah Parsons is great, but when you put two players on his own team in front of him, is that, Stu, the NFL players saying kind of a little bit tired with Micah Parsons? Because they are the ones that are voting on this list.
I think so, yeah. Because if you ask me of those three players who the best one is, I would tell you Parsons and not really think too much about it, to be honest.
All right, rank them. Parsons, Lamb, Prescott. In order. The one who's the best, and then the third who's the worst.
Parsons 1, definitely. The other two are pretty close, but I'd go Prescott 2, Lamb 3.
Interesting. Okay. I would go Micah 1, I'm with you, and I would go CeeDee Lamb 2, Dak Prescott 3. But let me ask the question that I teased. Who would you rather have, Dak Prescott or Jalen Hurts? Because look at it. Jalen Hurts did not have the better season than Dak Prescott. And Jalen Hurts and the Eagles, even when they got out to that 10-1 start, there were problems offensively, and they won one game down the stretch. And look at what the NFL players are telling you. When Dak Prescott had an MVP caliber season, the NFL players still view Jalen Hurts, even though it's a difference of one spot, as a better quarterback than Dak Prescott. I think they're right. Because when I look at Dak Prescott at his best, what does it lead to? Even though Dak has been more consistent than Jalen in the NFL, and he's had a larger sample size, but what does it lead to for Dak? Making the playoffs and at best being in the divisional round. What we got to see from Jalen Hurts at his best was not only making the playoffs, it was Jalen Hurts getting to an NFC championship game. Jalen Hurts getting to a Super Bowl. And then in the Super Bowl, when he was going up against the great Patrick Mahomes, even though they lost, it was Jalen Hurts in that game, not Patrick Mahomes, who was the best player on the field. So if you ask me, Zach, would you rather have for the next 5 years Jalen Hurts or Dak Prescott? Even though there's questions about both, and Hurts regressed last year, I'm with the NFL players. Even though it's only one spot, Hurts 15, Prescott 16, I would rather have Jalen Hurts than Dak Prescott in the National Football League. How about the voice, by the way, on J.P. Shadrick? That was like voice of God kind of quality from J.P. Shadrick. Some pipes he has. All righty, we'll take a time out here on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We have one more hour to play. A lot to get to in the final hour. Stu and I, when we return, will guess the top 10 order that will be revealed tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern of the top 100 as they do the final 10 players. We have the names. We'll try to tap inside the cabezas of the NFL players and how they are going to vote. Also on 3, as predicted, the college football playoff for this year. We'll get to that coming up in about 25 minutes from now. We'll do a little bit on Team USA when it comes to basketball. All righty. One more hour to go. We will get things started for hour number 3 when we come on back in 5 minutes right here on the Infinity Sports Network. It is the Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, rocking and rolling, jamming on out with you. Hour number 3 of our radio program, the NFL Top 100 list. Oh, I thought it came out tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. You have the Hall of Fame game tonight between the Texans and the Bears. So the Top 100 list actually comes out tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Eastern. So I apologize on that because for the last hour, I'm like, coming up at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight, the NFL is going to reveal their top 100 list. But it comes out at Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. But they have given us already players 100 to 11, and they will reveal the top 10 players Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So they have put out a list in alphabetical order of the top 10 players right now. So the top 10 players, this is not in order of how they're going to be 10 to 1. Max Crosby's in the top 10. Myles Garrett is in the top 10. Tyreek Hill is in the top 10. Lamar Jackson is in the top 10. Chris Jones is in the top 10. Travis Kelce is in the top 10. Patrick Mahomes is in the top 10. Christian McCaffrey is in the top 10. TJ Watt and Trent Williams. And if you're trying to figure out and you're saying, wait, Zach, you just said it's in alphabetical order. You put Max Crosby was in front of Chris Jones. It's by last name. Alphabetical order by last name. So Crosby, Garrett, Hill, Jackson, Jones, Kelce, Mahomes, McCaffrey, Watt, and Williams. So I want to do this right now. And I think this is going to be tough because it's not who my top 10 players are in the NFL. It's how I think the players voted on this. Now, I will tell you right out of the gate, I'm already being a hypocrite with this assignment. I am being a hypocrite for this assignment with the 10th spot because I think he's going to be higher than this. But quite frankly, he was not a top 10 player last year. He did not play like a top 10 player last year, and that was Travis Kelce. Now, don't get me wrong. Travis Kelce in the playoffs was excellent. Travis Kelce last year and him dating Taylor Swift was the biggest story in the league. But Travis Kelce's regular season, I think people forget there were moments last year where people were like, he's starting to slow down. Ooh, he's dropping the football a lot. Oh, he put the ball on the turf up against the Eagles. Like, Travis Kelce still finished with 93 receptions, 984 yards, and 5 touchdowns. But that wasn't a regular season that we're used to with Travis Kelce, where since 2016, he's been a 1,000-yard receiver, tight end, however you want to refer to him as. 2016, 1,125 yards. 2017, 1,038 yards. 2018, 1,336 yards. 2019, 1,229 yards. 2020, 1,416 yards. 2021, 1,125 yards. And 2022, 1,338 yards. So last year, maybe he's grandfathered in. And I know he missed 2 games. So if he would have played in one of those 2 games, all right, he gets over 1,000. I didn't feel like he was a top 10 player in the league. So that's my only gripe with the names that are there. Like, you're telling me Josh Allen's not a top 10 player in the NFL? No, he was ranked 12th. I know Josh Allen did not have the greatest season last year, but Travis Kelce, to me, should be on the outside looking in at this stage of his career. What needs to be is great. He doesn't need to be great in the regular season. Come postseason time, he's great. But I was a little surprised that he was in the top 10. So I think he'll rank higher than that. But I'm going to put him 10th on how I try to claim I think the players are going to vote, even though I just totally contradicted myself. So it's really how I think the players are going to vote 9 through 1. In at number 9, I think I would rank this person higher, but offensive lineman is just not sexy. So I'll go Trent Williams in at number 9. This dude is a closer. He is a finisher. And outside of Patrick Mahomes, I really do believe he's the most valuable player on the Kansas City. How about those Chiefs? And that's Chris Jones. You look back at their Lombardi trophies that they've won recently. Chris Jones makes big play after big play after big play over and over and over again. So I think the players are going to put Kelce 10th, Trent Williams 9, and Chris Jones 8th. Then at 7, I'm elated. I know this guy was in the top 15 last year. But I'm elated that Max Crosby is sitting inside the top 10 now. And I'm going to put him as the 7th best player in the NFL right now. And I think the players really do appreciate Max Crosby. And that's reflected by him already being in the top 10. Because it still feels like Stu, nationally, what do you think the view is of Max Crosby?
A good player on a bad team. I don't think enough people know how great he is because he's not on an elite team. Like
if you think we polled most players, the best 3 edge rushers in the NFL, don't you? Most people, I'm saying, not players, like fans. You would think most would say probably Watt, TJ Watt, that is, Myles Garrett, and then probably Micah Parsons.
I think so. I think most people would have Max 4th.
And to be clear, I would put Crosby in front of Micah Parsons.
Me too.
I think the 3 best pass rushers in the NFL One, TJ Watt led the NFL in sacks for the last 4 years. Then Myles Garrett. What he did this year, how he was running from tackle to tackle, and then forced to delay a game. I've never seen anything like that. And then Max Crosby would be in at number 3 for my top pass rushers in the NFL. But for this list, I think the players going to vote Travis Kelce 10th, Trent Williams 9th, Chris Jones 8th, and then Mad Max in at 7. So that leaves me with 6 names left. Lamar Jackson, Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, and Christian McCaffrey. This is where it gets difficult. Do you go defense? Do you go offense? This is a league based on offense. You know, running backs are undervalued now. Christian McCaffrey is more than a running back. And you could argue non-quarterbacks in the NFL, Christian McCaffrey could be the most valuable player in the league. Could be. I'm going to say McCaffrey 6 on this list. Then, personally, I think Watt should be in front of Myles Garrett. I think TJ Watt will be 5th. Myles Garrett, who won the Defensive Player of the Year, will be 4th. And then I have 3 names left. It's Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, and Lamar Jackson. Let me be abundantly clear here. If this list comes out on Friday at 10 p.m. or 8 p.m. Eastern time, and there's been years where, like, Mahomes or Brady haven't been number 1. And it was like one year, I think it may have been on Mahomes' 50 touchdown pass season. I think, like, there was one year that Drew Brees was ranked in front of Mahomes, and I was like, no disrespect to Drew Brees. We all know he's a Hall of Famer. But what are we doing? So if the players vote Lamar in front of Mahomes because Lamar now has 2 regular season MVPs, I'll lose my mind. Now, I don't think I think Lamar Jackson's the 4th best quarterback in football. You know, I've said this before. Number 1, it's Mahomes. 2, Burrow. Burrow got hurt last year. We know that. Josh Allen 3, and then Lamar Jackson 4th. But on this list, I think the players are going to vote Lamar Jackson 3, Tyreek Hill in at 2, and then Patrick Mahomes in at 1. So this list is going to come out on Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, and it is the top 10 players in the league. They gave us the top 10 names. This is how I think the players are going to vote. Kelce 10, Trent Williams 9, Chris Jones 8, Mad Max 7, Run CMC 6, TJ Watt 5th, Myles Garrett 4th, Lamar Jackson 3rd, Tyreek Hill 2nd, and then in 1st, Patrick Mahomes. Stu, do me a favor here. Give me your list.
Yes.
And how you is it close?
There are a lot of parts that are close, but there are 2 that are pretty different. Especially one guy is pretty different.
Okay. So that's a good tease.
Yes.
It was in 2019, by the way. Let me just pull this up. 2019 NFL Top 100, where Drew Brees was ranked the 2nd best player in the league. And I remember, because I was on the network at the time, and I was like, oh, they just did that for clicks, right? I'm like, oh, they wanted this list to get talked about, so they changed the rankings. There's no way. And Drew Brees, right, we all know, is a great player. Will be a Hall of Famer. But I just could not believe that they put Drew Brees ranked in front of Mahomes. And I think that was coming off Mahomes' rookie season. Well, not his first year
season,
playing.
Yeah.
Going back, here was the top 10 that year. Aaron Donald 1. Okay. Personally, I think you got, as great as Aaron Donald is, you got to have a quarterback number 1. Drew Brees was 2nd. This was 2019. Khalil Mack was 3rd. Patrick Mahomes was 4th. Oh, this is sad. Todd Gurley was 5. You know, I saw Todd Gurley. He attended Georgia. I guess his fullback is the strength and conditioning coach now at Nebraska. When I went to Nebraska, Michigan this past year, Todd Gurley was walking around Casa Bovina, the steakhouse I went to. And we're like, why would Todd Gurley be here? And eventually I was like, Todd? And he picked up his head. I'm like, we were wondering if it was Todd Gurley. Came over. Nicest guy. We talked to him for 30 minutes. And I was like, what the heck are you doing here? And he looked at me and said, I'm trying to figure this out myself. And he was kidding around as his buddy is on the strength staff. So Todd Gurley's 5th. Tommy Brady was 6th. Antonio Brown is 7th. Rodgers was 8th. Julio Jones was 9th. And Von Miller was 10th. It's kind of crazy looking back at that. Alrighty. So you have the names, Stu.
I do.
And this was given in alphabetical order by the last name. Crosby, Garrett, Hill, Jackson, Jones, Kelsey, Mahomes, McCaffrey, Watt, Williams. How do you think the players are going to vote on this? Once again, I had the players voting Kelsey, Williams, Jones, Crosby, Run CMC, Watt, Myles Garrett, Lamar Jackson, Tyreek Hill, and Patty Mahomes. And I gave the disclaimer that I probably know that Kelsey's going to be ranked higher, but I don't think he should be. So what do we got, Stu?
All right. I have Max Crosby at 10.
Okay. So I had him at 7.
Yes. So that's one of the, I would say, bigger plus minuses between us.
Okay.
Differences. I have Travis Kelce 9.
Okay, I had him 10th, so not that big of a discrepancy.
Chris Jones 8.
Okay, I had Jones 8 as well.
Trent Williams 7.
I had him 9.
Myles Garrett 6.
Okay, I had Myles Garrett 4th.
TJ Watt 5.
Which I personally agree with. I'd put Watt in front of Garrett, but I think the players will go. I had Myles Garrett ranked higher than Watt. That's confusing when you say that. But I think the players are going to. That's the way the players are going to do it. I would personally put Watt in front of Myles Garrett. You put Garrett when?
I put Garrett 6, so one spot behind TJ Watt.
Okay.
Okay, so this is where it gets a little interesting.
Wait, so far you have Crosby, Kelsey, Jones, Williams, Garrett.
And TJ Watt 5th.
And then Watt 5th. Okay. I had Watt in at the 5th spot as well.
This is where it gets interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I have Tyreek 4th.
I had him 2nd.
Lamar 3rd.
I had him 3rd as well.
McCaffrey 2nd.
Oh,
so I think McCaffrey gets more love from the players.
And I put him 6th, which I could see that.
And then Mahomes 1, obviously. That one's pretty easy for me.
Yeah. You know what? I kind of like your list. Tap it inside the brains of the players. Now, we had like some similarities. That was the one I struggled with the most. It was...
McCaffrey.
It was when you got down to Run CMC, Watt, Myles Garrett, Lamar, Hill, and Mahomes. Like, Mahomes is 1. Then after that, it was, how do you rank those other 5 players? Because I think players will put more of an emphasis on defense. Fans won't. This isn't a fan list. And then I was like, I got to think of winning back-to-back MVPs. Lamar was going to be in the top 3. So how did you kind of rank Watt, Garrett, McCaffrey, and Hill? That was the tough order on how to place those guys. And for some reason, I bookended with Hill one place and McCaffrey on the other, but it would not surprise me if McCaffrey's inside the top 5 or even as you had him as the second best player.
Yeah, so the way I looked at it was I thought the defensive guys would be together, being Watt and Garrett. I thought those two are pretty much
fair,
very close players, like apples and oranges. They're so good, but very slight differences. So I thought those two would be together, and I thought the offensive guys would be ahead. Now, again, like you said, maybe the players do value defense more, so then that would maybe
bump it up a little bit.
Yeah, but
I do think the two fascinating parts of this top 10 reveal with the players that we have is Myles Garrett or TJ Watt by the players. Where are they going to be ranked?
Yeah.
I think that's one, and then it's also assuming that the second spot, because we both had a second spot to the second overall to an offensive player that wasn't a quarterback. If you go to non-quarterback on the offensive side of the ball, is it Hill or is it Christian McCaffrey?
Right.
That's what I think are the two most intriguing parts when you look at Crosby, Garrett, Hill, Jackson, Jones, Kelsey, Mahomes, McCaffrey, Watt, and Williams. The NFL players, will they put Hill in front of McCaffrey or McCaffrey in front of Hill? And then who will be the number 1 defensive player? You have possibilities, Jones, Crosby, Garrett, Watt. I think it's a discussion between Garrett and Watt, and I'm fascinated to see what the end results are there.
For sure. And I guess another way I looked at it too, just looking at this, I thought 10, 9, and 8 between Crosby, Kelsey, and Jones were pretty interchangeable. I thought Trent Williams and the two defensive linemen, Watt and Garrett, were all in that next group, and then the top, Mahomes was one, but 2, 3, 4 between McCaffrey, Lamar, Tyreek, I thought were also. So those were, I just thought like there's almost like tiers. Like Mahomes is on his own tier, then the 3 offensive guys are on their tier, and then the 2 defensive linemen and an offensive lineman, and then the rest of the guys.
I do wonder, though, how high up Trent Williams will go.
Yeah.
Because he's the best, right? I think everyone refers to him as the best offensive lineman in football. And it's like, okay, how far are players willing to go? Like, it shouldn't be a surprise name in the top 5. But if he landed in the top 5, I wouldn't be sitting there saying, like, oh, my goodness gracious.
I think he's the best player at his position by maybe McCaffrey, but I think between those two, I think those two are the best at their positions by a margin. Like Mahomes is the best quarterback, but there are also guys that are amazing quarterbacks, like just below him, I feel
Sure, but the Mahomes scale.
It's Mahomes, yeah.
Like, look, the Chiefs were down the last 2 years, and they still were at the top of the mountain screaming victory as Super Bowl champions, winning back-to-back Super Bowl championships. Okay, Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. When we come on back, On 3 has predicted the 12 teams in the college football playoff. There's some things I think they got right and some things I think they got wrong. We'll discuss next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Expecting this today.
You're listening to the Infinity Sports Network.
Have we ever used this as a rejoin on this show? You know, I've been at this network now for a long time. I've never heard this as a rejoin, though, still.
It's in my folder. I guess I just don't rotate it in nearly enough.
I'm not being critical of it. It's just one of those things where I've never heard this as a rejoin on this particular network. But anywho, let me get to On 3. They have put out their projected top 12 playoff teams, or how the 12 teams are going to get into the college football playoff for this upcoming season. This was J.D. Pickle. In at number 1, Georgia. Okay, don't got a problem with that. 2, he had Oregon winning the Big Ten. I could see it. Dylan Gabriel, I think, takes over the Oregon program in a better spot in his career than when Bo Nix was walking into Oregon. And Bo Nix was up and down. We've seen more consistency from Dylan Gabriel. Personally, I would put Ohio State in that spot. Now, he had Miami with Cam Ward, who was a 0-star recruit, landed at Incarnate Word. Last year was at Washington State. I'm a big fan of Cam Ward, but do I think Mario Cristobal, who I like a lot, is taking Miami to be ACC champs this year? No, I do not. He had Utah finishing 4th in the Big 12. I will say this. Between the 4 power conferences, ACC, Big 12, Georgia, SEC, and the Big 10, I think the toughest conference to predict this year is the Big 12. I don't think you have a great team in the Big 12 this year. I think you just have a lot of good teams. Like Utah, I have all the respect in the world. But your tight end's coming off an injury. Your quarterback's coming off an injury. And I love Kyle Whittingham. He's a top 5 coach in the sport. But Utah was picked to win it. I kind of feel like they're not going to win it because that's a lot to overcome, even though they have they have a very good team, I should say. I'll go Kansas State. I will, for the Big 12. I think it's the toughest one to pick, though. You can give me an answer, and I really can't refute the answer. So is the 4 highest-ranked conference champs, Georgia was 1, Oregon was 2, Miami was 3, Utah was 4. Now, the 5th conference champ, which was the highest ranked, which ends up being the 12th seed, was App State, Appalachian State in at 12. I'm not going to go nuts. I think anyone that's predicting outside of the top 4 power conferences now, anyone who's projecting who's going to be that 5th spot, it's all a guessing game. I'll say Liberty, but I'm not going to crush JD for putting App State there. I won't do that. That's fine by me. Now, for the other wild card spots, he had Ole Miss as 5th, Ohio State 6th, Florida State, so 2 from the ACC at 7th, Texas 8, Notre Dame 9, Alabama 10, Tennessee 11, and then App State 12. So in that home playoff game, Texas would be hosting Notre Dame. Oh, that would be ratings galore. Florida State would be hosting Alabama. Ole Miss will be hosting App State, and then Ohio State will be hosting Tennessee. I have a few reactions to this. But, Stu, something that annoys me here, it makes, and I understand, right, that App State shouldn't be ranked higher than 12. But isn't it kind of funky to me with the way that this works, that if you're a conference champ, you're guaranteed a bye. But then the 5th conference champ, and they just say it by the highest ranked conference champions, get the 4 byes. But then the 5th conference champ, you could be seated anywhere. Like, that's always funky to me in the seeding, because you could argue that there are teams better than, like, let's say Miami wins the ACC and Utah wins the Big 12. You could argue there's teams that are better than those two, but they don't get impacted. It's just, App State, because you're not in the upper tier of college football, one of the 4 power conferences. I always think that's funky with how they word it. It's like you're picking and choosing when to reward the conference champions.
So you think it should almost be like they automatically get the 5th seed, or?
I just think you should be guaranteed a spot. You know, just guaranteed a spot in the playoff. You win your conference championship, you're guaranteed a spot in the playoff. You know, that's all I would do it. But this is just the way that it goes. So we'll play by the rules. Now, reacting to his top 12 playoff teams, JD Pickle. Georgia 1, Oregon 2, Miami 3, Utah 4, Ole Miss 5, Ohio State 6, Florida State 7, Texas 8, Notre Dame 9, Alabama 10, Tennessee 11, 12, Appalachian State. A few reactions. Number one, I don't think the ACC is getting 2 teams. I don't. I think this year you'll have your 5 conference champs. You will have then 3 more spots that will go to the Big Ten. So that puts you to 8. 3 more spots that go to the SEC. So 4 and 4 overall. That puts you at 11. And then that final spot that I still have to play will either go to Notre Dame. And if Notre Dame isn't a top 12 team, then I do believe that the Big Ten or the SEC would get another team. And quite frankly, heading into this year, I kind of feel like the Big 12, if there was a conference between the Big 12 and the ACC to get a second team, that it would be the Big 12 over the ACC. But here's the tricky part. Like, let's say, this is where a conference like the ACC can get in. Let's say if Florida State was definitely like undefeated going into their conference championship game, and they were playing Miami in the conference championship game, and Miami upsets them. Now, Miami then not only gets in, but they get a bye. And then it's like, you're going to keep a 1-loss Florida State team out. So I don't know if that's the way that he did it, but that's just something to think about, where that's where it could get really funky in a 12-team format, where in 4, you lose your conference championship game, and most years you don't get in. You know, there was, right, TCU lost the Big 12 championship game, and they were still able to get into the college football playoff. They made it to the national championship game 2 years ago. But in a 12-team format, that's where someone can get bumped out if, like, the ACC or the Big 12 has their top team in the conference not end up winning the conference championship. So that's something to monitor. I look at this list, though. No Michigan in the top 12, which you could see this year, and no Penn State in the top 12. I think, personally, in the Big Ten, I would say Ohio State is 1, Oregon right now is 2, Penn State is 3, and Michigan would be 4 going into this season. But I think the 2 biggest things from this exercise that JD put out there predicting his top 12 teams, outside of Miami winning the ACC, which I just can't believe, but he has Miami and Florida State, 2 ACC teams in. And then after that, from the Big Ten perspective, let me just make sure I get this right. He only has Oregon and Ohio State in the only 2 in the Big Ten. There is no way. There is a 0% chance that the Big Ten is only putting 2 teams in the playoff. Matt Rule was talking about they should get 4 every year. But only 2. I can't see where we have like actual debates. Is the Big Ten or the SEC the best conference in college football? Those are debates. Now, I personally think the SEC still is the king. But you tell me when it's a have or have not sport now, and you have 12 spots and we've seen before, right, the Big Ten get 2 teams in a 4-team format in the college football playoff. 2 years ago when Ohio State got in, they lost to Georgia, and Michigan got in, they lost to TCU. So in a 4-team format, the Big Ten would get 2 teams in one time, and in a 12-team format, they're only going to put 2 teams in the college football. That's not going to happen. There's no way that's going to happen.
And 5 SEC teams?
So if you tell me
that's a lot.
5 SEC teams get in, you know what my response would be? Notre Dame didn't make the college football playoff. Right? Because there is that. Now, in this list, crazy enough, he does have Notre Dame in. Because the way that I look at it, once again, the 5 conference champ spots are reserved. Like reserved for conference champions. Then after that, you have 7 spots to go. If you want to tell me that 3 more go to the SEC, 3 more go to the Big Ten, okay, and then Notre Dame doesn't get in and the 5th spot, that last spot goes to an SEC, okay, that's how I could see either the SEC or the Big Ten getting 5 teams in. But to think that the SEC is getting 5 teams in and the Big Ten's only getting 2, just stop. Like, I'm looking through this because you have all these conference changes. I'm like, where are we missing? Like, what school are we forgetting? We're not. He put Oregon 2 and Ohio State 6 and then nobody else from the Big Ten. Like, I know we give Hickey a lot of crap. And we call him a Penn State homer, right? All the time. And Hickey's like, I'm not getting optimistic about Penn State. And then I had him do win-loss. And he goes, they're only going to be a 1-loss team this year. But, like, seriously, how are you going to get 5 SEC teams in? And even if Hickey's wrong by a game, like, Penn State should only lose 2 games at most when you look at their schedule that they have. So I don't see how the Big Ten is only going to put 2 teams in the playoff. I don't. And 5 in the SEC. I can guarantee you this. You may not get 4 teams in from the Big Ten or 4 teams. Like, that may not happen. But at a bare minimum, I can guarantee you each and every year they do a 12-team college football playoff. Each and every year, bare minimum, 2 out of the final 7 spots, 4 out of the final 7 spots will be divided up, SEC and Big Ten, 2 apiece. Every year, there will be at a bare minimum 3 teams from the Big Ten, 3 teams from the SEC in the college football playoff in a 12-team format, if not more than that. So this is a fascinating breakdown. And, predictions are made to create conversation, so JD did provide that for us. But putting Miami in there, I did not see that. Tennessee, I think, is a fun pick. But when you put 5 teams in from the SEC, like Nico, how do you say the quarterback's last name? Imaliava. He could be a dark horse for the Heisman. But to think that the SEC is getting Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Tennessee, 5 in, and the Big Ten's only getting 2, that doesn't line up where college football is. Like, if college football right now is a seesaw, and you put 2 big people on there, and one's with the Big Ten, one's with the SEC, yeah, you could tell who is stronger weighted, but you're not getting thrown off the seesaw on the other side. This would be the Big Ten getting thrown off the seesaw by the SEC. It's not going to be a 5-2 split. That would... Big Ten commissioner, my best friend, Tony Petitti, him and Rob Manfred, they get together and they talk about how much they both love Zach Gelb, Rob Manfred and Tony Petitti. Man, he would have every right. I would put him on the show after that, and I can't stand his guts. But I would put him on the show after that, Selection Sunday, I believe it is. And I would put him on that show Monday and allow him to shred the college football playoff committee. Absolutely shred the committee if they only put 2 Big Ten teams in. That will not happen. All righty, we will come on back. We got one more segment to play. Why I would not want to be Steve Kerr right now. And he should just stop doing what he's doing. I'll tell you why when we return. Update time. Here he is, the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network. Sports Flash.
Well, Simone Biles wins another gold medal, taking the women's all-around with teammate Sumi Lee winning the bronze, and Team USA picks up 2 more medals in the pool. Katie Douglas wins the 200-meter breaststroke for the gold, and Katie Ledecky earned a silver in the 4x200-meter freestyle relay, her 13th medal, making her the most decorated female Olympian ever for the United States. And the U.S. women in action in basketball today and getting past Belgium 87-74. The preseason kicks off tonight with the Bears and Texans in the Hall of Fame game. Expectations are low with many of the big names, including top pick Caleb Williams, out for the game tonight. The Chargers are holding their breath today. Quarterback Justin Herbert has plantar fasciitis and will have to wear a walking boot for the next 2 weeks. He is expected to be okay for week 1. The Bucs' Tristan Wirfs goes into the season very happy after getting a 5-year extension today that makes him the highest paid lineman in history, worth $140 million. Over $88 million is guaranteed. And from the NBA, Gordon Hayward announces retirement after 14 seasons. I'm Rich Hacker.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X and like us on Facebook. Our handle is @INF Sportsnet on X and INF Sportsnet for Facebook.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, we got more injury news. This time we have another injury news item in the NFL. And we already know Justin Herbert's going to be in a boot. They still expect him, as he has a little plantar fasciitis, to be ready to go for the start of the season. But DeAndre Hopkins of the Tennessee Titans has suffered a knee injury during practice this week, and the expectation is he'll miss roughly 4 to 6 weeks per Paul Kurhowski. This is via Ari Murov as well. Tennessee opens their season versus the Bears on September 8th. So 1, 2, 3, 4. If it's 4 weeks, he'll be back by week 1. The 5th week is of week 1, and then if it's 6, it's past week 1 when you just look at that. Now, here's just sad news. It's not surprising, and I have no expectation for one of the great Major League Baseball players I've seen in my lifetime for the rest of his career. He should have left his team years ago, but now he just can't stay healthy. And Mike Trout's going to be one of those players where he's kind of like the newer version of Ken Griffey Jr. Don't get me wrong. I'd rather have Ken Griffey Jr. over Mike Trout. But Mike Trout is that great and that special. And even when he's easily going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. But just like Ken Griffey Jr., it's one of those careers where even when you are a first ballot Hall of Famer, you're still like, man, imagine if that dude just could have been healthy. Like, you look back at Mike Trout. Right now, he's an 11-time All-Star, a 3-time AL MVP. You know, hasn't even hit 400 career home runs yet. Is at 378. Ken Griffey Jr., 13-time All-Star. He only won 1 AL MVP. 10 gold gloves, though. And you look at Ken Griffey Jr., just accomplishment after accomplishment, and he got 99.3% on the first ballot. Like, Trout will easily, slam dunk, Hall of Famer. But Ken Griffey Jr. did hit 630 home runs. So if he was healthy, right, he would have been the home run king and a clean home run king, or easily at least 700 home runs if he was healthy. But Trout, who is an all-around player as well, I think it's one of those guys that you're going to look back at and you're just going to say, as great as he is, right? Your first ballot Hall of Famer in any sport, that is creme de la creme. But you look at Mike Trout now, who's only 32, right? He can't stay healthy. Like, I just saw a tweet from Bill Shaken. Games played by Mike Trout in the second half of the season. This is from 2021 and on. 2021, 0. 2022, 40. 2023, 1. 2024, 0. So in the second half of season since 2021, he has played in a grand total of 41 games. That's sad. That is really sad. You know, I hate to say it, his career's done. You know, he's still going to play, right? He'll still have a good half of a season, you know, where you'll think, okay, maybe he'll get through a full season. But these injuries just don't go away. Hey, by the way, Stu, our pal, friend of the show, Sean Merriman, he retweeted my take that the Chargers shouldn't rush Justin Herbert back because it's a punt season for them. A take that I gave earlier because I have no expectations for the Chargers. And I'm not anti-Charger. I love Herbert, and I don't think there's outside of Rich Eisen, I don't think there is a national, I guess I'll refer to myself as a gas bag now. But I don't think there's a national gas bag that is a bigger proponent of Jim Harbaugh than Shefty, Eisen. Those are the two, Rich Eisen, Adam Schefter, and then Zach Gelb. So Chargers fans aren't happy with me now. Now, Merriman retweeted my take, and he said, if he has plantar fasciitis, it won't get injured more, but it is painful as hell. Feels like you're walking on pins and needles. Chargers fans are like, this is a lazy take calling it a punt season. Like, come on. Let me talk to the 8 Chargers fans that are out there. All right? Is that a little mean? I like the Chargers, too.
Mean but true.
I like the Chargers. I have nothing against them. But, my bad. To all 16 of you out there, like, come on. Austin Eckler used to play there. He was like, where are fans? He, like, stopped even trying to get Chargers fans to be fans because no one would show up anyway for those games. But what do you like? If you're saying, oh, how dare you say it's a punt season? What are you expecting? Like, if everything goes right, maybe you're a wild card team. Everything. And I love Harbaugh. You have a kick-ass offensive line, and I love Herbert. But this team's like a walking injury year after year after year. And I know Harbaugh in the NFL, 4 years in the league, he had 3 NFC Championship game appearances. One was ended up winning and getting into a Super Bowl. I think Harbaugh was a tremendous hire, and Harbaugh is going to be great with the Chargers. But, like, if you're a Chargers fan, and if you could, all 16 of you once again, if you could take off the Chargers glasses, you really expect this team to be something this year, and you find it offensive when someone calls it a punt season? Like, it's year one of a new regime. After you had an incompetent coach in Brandon Staley who should be charged with football crimes for what he did in the last 2 years. But just because you bring in Harbaugh, you'll be improved. But I'm not expecting this to be some great team. And yes, I stand by it. I think this is a punt season. And if you rush back Justin Herbert for the first 2 games of the year up against the Raiders and the Panthers, your organization's a bunch of fools. You hired a great coach, but your organization's a bunch of fools if you rush back Herbert if he's not ready. If he's ready, that's different. But if he's not ready, you don't need to put him on the field early on in the season. Finally, Steve Kerr. I don't think there is any redeeming quality of being the head coach of USA Basketball. We all know you're expected to win. And even when you do win, you still get slammed. You didn't play Tatum. Then you start Tatum. You didn't play Embiid. I don't think it's worth it for Steve Kerr. And I know, right, with Steve Kerr's background and how this means something to him, I totally get that. But personally, if I was Steve Kerr, and I'm not, but if I was Steve Kerr, where I'm forget what he was as a player, as a head coach, I'm a multiple-time champion. I'm like, I'm not dealing with this crap. In the offseason, I'm going to some tropical island, putting my toes in the sand, sitting on a big beach chair with some cervezas in hand, and I am not giving a rat's ass about USA basketball. I'm just not. Because what did it get you, Steve? Yeah, you'll win a gold medal. There's no doubt about it. You're going to win a gold medal. But everyone's like, oh, you should start this person. You should start that person. Oh, what are you doing? It's crazy to me. It really is. So here's Brian Windhorst, by the way. We'll play this for you quickly, and then we'll get out of here. He says, this was what Windy had to say on Steve Kerr and Team USA's benching. This was courtesy of ESPN.
Steve Kerr came out after the game last night, Greeny, and basically put out a sermon and said, this is not the NBA. This is not the soap opera. This is not drama. What we have here is a chance to win a gold medal over the course of 2.5 weeks, and he's going to change his lineup whoever fits the best in those each individual games. He's not going to care if a player gets upset or if a player isn't thrilled, because he doesn't have to worry about the player asking for a trade or getting re-signed or going to his agent. They are going to put out lineups that can win. And against the South Sudan, who plays a very athletic, spread the floor, speed game without much size, Joel Embiid didn't make sense. Jason Tatum made more sense in a wing-heavy lineup. He's going to continue to do this. In fact, he announced Jason Tatum will be back out of the starting lineup, and Joel Embiid will be back in on Saturday when they play Puerto Rico. None of the social media reaction to the way they play matters. The only thing that matters is that they get victories. And I'm going to tell you right now, Steve Kerr is dropping aces. All of his game plans have been working. His lineup changes have worked. Even Derek White, he's played 2 brilliant games. He's plus 33. Greeny, Steve Kerr's on a hot streak right now. If you're criticizing him, you're in a bad spot.
And I'm not criticizing Steve Kerr, but that's the point. All the guy does is win, and we all know he's going to win. But let's be real, like, we could put Stu as the head coach at Team USA with all the talent that they have and the talent discrepancy, and they're going to win. And that's not me undermining Steve Kerr. I think Steve Kerr's a tremendous coach, but I don't think there's any benefit for Steve Kerr to coach Team USA when it's like, oh, you didn't start Tatum. Oh, you didn't start Tatum. Oh, you didn't start Joel Embiid. It's a mess. I want Stu Kovacs 4 years from now to be coaching Team USA. All righty, fun show today. Big thanks to JP Shadrick for joining us. Stu, thank you. Moist Mike, thank you as well, each and every one of you. We'll be back tomorrow. We're here on Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We'll talk to you then, everybody. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.